Good afternoon. I am Anuj Mehrotra, Dean of the School of Business at the George Washington University, and I'm delighted to welcome you to this episode of George Talks Business. Today, our guest is Sirisha Bandla, Vice President of Government Affairs and Research Operations at the Virgin Galactic and an MBA alumna. Thank you very much for being here, Sirisha.
Thank you so much for having me. Hopefully in the future I'll be able to join all of you in person, but we're still in the midst of a pandemic, and I'm so glad we have the technology to still have these talks.
Great, Sirisha. And last year, Sirisha, you made history when you traveled to space on board the Virgin Galactic space flight. Of course, I'm sure everybody who knows you, everybody that you have worked with, is very proud of you, and so are we at GWSB. Very proud of you indeed. But I want to go back to the beginning. Where did you grow up? What inspired your interest in space? And was it like generally the parents saying you got to reach for the stars that made you do this?
Yeah, absolutely. So going back to the beginning, I always try to pinpoint where I actually got interested in space. And it really is hard. It's a love of the sky that really grew over time. I was born in India, and I do remember laying at night on my roof, looking up at the stars. And I think that's really where it started. And I grew up in Houston for a little while, right next to Johnson Space Center. So being so close, going there for field trips, really, really just like helped grow that love of space. And at some point I was just like, I'm going to be an astronaut. I want to go to space. And I really just committed my life to that goal. There's a funny story and a longer story behind that, and I'm happy to get into it as we discuss. But my parents have always been so supportive. They're the ones that drove me to air shows, took me to Johnson Space Center, and it was them that said, you can reach for the stars, you can do whatever you want to do. That really helped me reach my goal.
So I was right. Then they did tell you to go reach for the stars, and you did. So let me ask you a question, though. In our conversations, I know you have had a very unconventional way towards this, right? You started with an engineering degree, and then you ended up going and getting an MBA from us here. Can you tell us what inspired that connection between engineering and business education, and how has that come in useful for you?
Yeah, I mean, this is a very interesting time. I've wanted to be an astronaut since I was young. And when I was young, the way to be an astronaut is through NASA. So for me, that was what I was aiming for, going to the government agency, getting selected, and going to space that way. Unfortunately, I did have to take, well, unfortunately or fortunately, however you look at it, I did take a non-traditional route. And for me, that was because of my eyesight. In high school, my eyesight went past the requirements for becoming a NASA astronaut, and I didn't really know what to do. So while I was stumbling around trying to figure out what my new life goal was, this was 2004, I saw the Anasari X Prize. And the Anasari X Prize was a prize awarded to a commercial company that went to space with a reusable spacecraft twice. So a company in California completed that, won the Anasari X Prize, and I saw Sir Richard Branson stand up and say, I'm going to create a company called Virgin Galactic that's going to make space accessible for all. And this past year, you've seen companies like Virgin Galactic, Blue Origin, SpaceX send people to space. And these aren't people that are trained to be astronauts in the way that NASA and other government agencies train. This is a commercial business. And that melding of engineering and business really caught me. So while I did go through engineering, I really wanted to be part of the commercial spaceflight industry. That's really the industry that excited me. And to do that, I went and decided to go to George Washington for my MBA. To learn more about the business side that I didn't get in engineering. And George Washington has an awesome space policy institute. So I was even able to meld space policy into my MBA, which is very unique. You don't find that anywhere else.
So that's a great story, Sirisha. So let me take you back to this. You have always wanted to be in space, one way or the other, either through the astronaut or through this experience now. Um, when you got this invitation to be on Unity 22, if I'm remembering it right, what was that moment like? Did you have to think through it? Did you go and call your family immediately? What was their reaction? What was your reaction?
So I, you know, again, I know I say this a lot. I've been wanting to be an astronaut since I was young. And as a part of that, I had these moments where you're daydreaming and you think about what you're doing when you get the call. And it was not what I expected. So when I got the call that I was being considered for Unity 22, I was doing laundry. So while I was folding socks, I was told that I was being considered. So it wasn't as glamorous as I thought in my head, but it was still a very special moment and almost surreal. And I know the president of the company was on the call giving me this information, and Mike Moses said, you can think about it. Let me know what your answer is. And I was like, no, done. I'm thought about it. Yes, I'm in. And again, it's because of the support of my family. I knew they would be supportive. My husband, my husband, when we first started dating, we talked about my ambitions for space flight. So he already, he already knew what the answer was. So it's because of the supportive network I was able to give my answer immediately, and I was so excited.
That's great. So many of our students and alumni would love to hear some aspect of reliving that experience from the time you took off to the time you landed back. Relive that experience for us. Tell us in a short while, what was that like?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll describe the space flight, but I will say that the entire journey started well before we took off and lasts well before we'll stop. I mean, I still kind of feel like I'm on this journey still. But the pinnacle of the experience was the space flight for sure. So you start very early in the morning. And I like to say I have somewhat of a superpower. I can sleep on demand. So the night before the space flight, I got a good 8 hours of sleep. So I was awake. I was feeling refreshed. I went to the spaceport, which is this absolutely beautiful facility that really, if I have to describe it, it's really the greatest starting point from Earth. It takes in a lot of elements of our planet. So it really reminds you of where this journey started from and where we come from, this planet. So we go to our spaceport. I see my crew. I get the debrief from the pilots. I get the debrief from our chief astronaut instructor who trained us. And we go to the spacecraft. We enter. We're really excited. My role on the flight was actually to do a science experiment during the flight, proving out the capability that researchers can fly with their research and their payloads to space. So I got the experiments from the researchers that morning, strapped them to my leg ahead of entering the vehicle, and then we took off, which is, again, very exciting. You take off and you can see the spaceport, and all of my family and friends and a lot of the companies, the people that I worked with leading up to the flight were there waving. And I remember waving back, even though I knew they couldn't see me. So we took off. It takes about 30 minutes to get to the altitude where we released from, because Virgin Galactic operates a hybrid vehicle. It's an aircraft and a spacecraft. So the aircraft carries us to this altitude. So on the way up, I'm, going through my tasks. I'm doing some of the science experiment that I have strapped to my leg, talking to my crewmates, and then we get the countdown, and then it's release, release, release. That is when the vehicle, the mothership Eve releases the spaceship Unity. And upon release, the rocket motor kicks in. And as an aerospace engineer, that was one of the coolest parts of the flight. You feel the rocket motor's power behind you. You feel the G forces push you into your seat as the vehicle basically turns up towards space. And that was just a really amazing moment, because as we're vertical, I can see the sky changing from blue to black. It kind of just is a realization that you are going to space. And then, of course, once once the rocket motor cuts off, that's when you have the microgravity period, the period of weightlessness. So we're able to unstrap. We're floating around the cabin. I'm finishing up the experiments that I have to do, and then I get a moment to go to the window and take a look outside, and it's just absolutely breathtaking. I just Words cannot describe the incredible view of looking back down on the planet. It's the planet that houses everything you've ever known. You see the thin blue line of the atmosphere, and then beyond it is just matte black. And it just puts into focus how incredibly lucky we are that we have this planet. And it doesn't make you feel small, but it energizes you to come back and make a difference, make an impact. But then, that after the weightlessness period, we did have to come back. So we landed back at the spaceport like a glider, and I was able to walk out. And the first person I gave a hug to was my father. So there's a great picture of him just like squeezing the living daylights out of me after I got out of the spacecraft.
Wow, this is so exciting, and at the same time, a little bit nerve-wracking to experience the darkness in the space and then looking down on Earth. If one of our alumni or students wants to go on this flight, um, what is the training required, mentally or physically, for a tourist like this to be in a position to just go in one of these joyrides, so to speak, to space?
Yeah. So the purpose of the company and of our vehicles is to really allow anybody that wants to go to space to be able to embark on that journey. So to do so, we created a vehicle that does not require months or years of training to be able to participate in this incredible journey. So, really, for a tourism flight, it's about 5 days. You show up to spaceport, you meet your chief astronaut instructor, you meet your crew, and you learn about the operations of the vehicle, how to move about the cabin, how to operate your seatbelt, how to put on your spacesuit and everything that'll be in the spacesuit. And then also you talk to people that have been to space. You talk to members of our community just to prep you for the mental experience as well. I mean, seeing the view from space is just absolutely incredible. And I really enjoyed that mental preparation as well as the operational one. If you're a researcher, this is the other part that's so cool, is that we're also flying researchers and scientists and technologists to space as well. Typically, a researcher would create their experiment, their research, their payload, and then give it to NASA or another government agency that would then fly it up to space. We're now allowing researchers to fly their own vehicle or their own payloads to space, basically being able to do field research, which is not something that was possible before. So a researcher themselves will probably take about 2 weeks of training because they are completing a little bit more complex tasks in the cabin. But two weeks or 5 days, depending on the purpose of your mission, and that is what it takes.
So that is very interesting. And you touched upon a couple of points that I want to delve a little bit deeper, because I think a lot of our audience is inspired by your success story. And of course, I know your example of making an argument about the importance of equal opportunity and equity when it comes to space travel, which is kind of what you are hinting at when you're talking about allowing researchers to go, for example. And the idea, so tell me, from the diversity, equity, and inclusion lens, what kind of response from the community have you received? And isn't there some mental preparation required to actually now assume the role of a celebrity after returning from this kind of a mission?
Yeah, I mean, it's really incredible. We've had just an incredible response from the research and science community, from the people that wanted to go to space their entire lives. We've gotten over 600 people that have signed up to go on our vehicles and embark on that journey. And I'm personally very excited because to date, we've just passed the mark of 600 people that have gone to space. So in the existence of our humanity, only 600 people have gone to space and been able to see that view. Once commercial companies are flying at a higher cadence, we're going to double that number. We're going to double the number of people that have gone to space. And that's important for, I think, multiple reasons. One, you're going to see the diversity of the people that have gone to space increase. Of those 600 people, less than 100 have been women, and a fraction of that have been people of color and from from underrepresented communities that don't typically have a space program in their countries. And with commercial spaceflight, you're going to see a diversity in the types of people that go to space, their backgrounds, their culture, their experiences in life. And they're going to have this incredible experience. And then they're going to return to their communities. And they're going to have their own individual impact on their communities that I think, honestly, is just going to be so profound. And we're going to see this proliferation. You're going to have communities that, some of these folks are going to go back to. It'll be the first astronaut that kids meet. And that in itself is just an incredible impact to make. It really reduces the barrier of what people think is possible and what kids think is possible growing up. For me personally, I was not a big social media person. And honestly, I avoided the internet because I did think it was more of a negative place than a positive place. But, after they announced my name as one of the Unity 22 crew, I was just so surprised by the response, especially from young women, especially young women in India that have written to me and said, your spaceflight journey has inspired me to go embark on my own journey. And it's not necessarily to space, but a journey for whatever goal that they've been wanting to reach and they've been putting off for whatever reason. And it was just really, really heartwarming to see all of those positive messages. There was very little negative messages that I saw come through, which was just incredible.
So that is awesome. And I think the vast majority of the people I share with you are very positive about this. And certainly you have made some very good reasons here to be supporting research and other aspects, and really are inspiring a lot of people across the communities around the world when you have through this mission and experience of yours. But there is a set of people who do feel there is controversy that this is available only to the really wealthy people, and it takes a lot more. And shouldn't that wealth be put to better use or different use? And what would your argument be about that controversial negative connotation to this?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I do believe that the price will come down over time as we see more innovation in the technology for spaceflight, in the manufacturing process for spaceflight, much like the airlines. I do think the price will go down so that more and more people will be able to embark on the journey. Virgin Galactic also partnered with Omaze to do raffles, and for $10, you were able to enter into a raffle to win a prize, win a flight to space. And we actually picked someone, incredible woman, Keisha, and she's going to be going to space with her daughter. And these are the kinds of things that we're doing in the interim. But I do think that as we move through, as we get smarter with the technology, as we create more space vehicles, create fleets of space vehicles, that price will come down over time and be accessible for a lot more people. And I do also, again, just going back to my previous point, a lot of the astronauts and customers we have also have a project, their own life's work that they're interested in. I truly believe that once they go to space, they see this incredible view, they embark on this journey, they're going to come back and be very energized to impact change. And I think you're going to see that effect as well as we send more and more people into space.
Well, that's really very promising, Sirisha. So tell me a little bit. We know now that space tourism industry is more than engineering. So tell us some of the career paths for our students, for example, if they were interested in space tourism and where they might take it. And where do you see the space tourism industry in the next few years, and perhaps what is your vision for the future? I mean, you touched upon some of that in your answer before, but give us a little bit more
Yeah.
from the perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is again why I'm so excited about commercial space. It isn't just for engineers. Obviously, we do need the engineers. We need the technicians for our spaceships and our motherships, but it is a business. So we have an incredible group of branding and marketing team, as you can all see in Virgin for sure. Has a very strong brand, but I'm not biased, of course. Lawyers, program managers, all of these different types of roles are needed to create this business and to create it to be successful. We have a sales team as well to sell tickets. We have engineers as well as scientists working on not only the vehicle, but with the research and science community, with NASA, with FAA, because we are regulated by the FAA. So again, it's a very wide range of roles that you would see in a typical business, but for space flight. So it's, yeah, I think there's so many opportunities for someone to want to be a part of this industry and to do it in their own way and in a way that interests themselves. And this is such an incredible time. So last year alone, we had my flight in July, and shortly after we had Blue Origin fly people as well. And then a couple months after, we had SpaceX fly for tourists around on orbit. This is the I know I didn't want to use this pun, but this is the launch pad. This is the launch pad for commercial human space flight. From here on, you're going to see more and more people fly in different vehicles, which I think that's important. It's not one company. You're seeing multiple companies offer products, and you see that demand is there, which is very important for for a market here. So this is just the beginning. You're going to see a lot more. You're going to see a lot more applications come out of this industry as well.
So that's a great point you're making, because, but still, the space tourism industry is still in its early stages. And
Mhm.
just as you mentioned, some of the competition that Virgin Galactic has, Fernando, one of our students, is asking, how is Virgin Galactic facing its major competitors? Would love to hear your thoughts about how you can stay ahead in this innovative area right now.
Yeah, so Virgin Galactic is offering a hybrid system, which I believe is very unique. It's aircraft and a spacecraft. So all of our operations are more akin to like you walking on a commercial airliner. I mean, it has its advantages, especially if you're doing commercial work, like research and scientific work. You're able to use the aircraft itself as a control environment for some of the research you're conducting. But in general, we market ourselves as an entire experience. Again, we have an entire future astronaut community that are connected right now, and it's not just the space flight. I will say the space flight is very cool. It's probably the highlight of the experience. But at Galactic, the journey starts much sooner. When you decide you want to take that step, that is when you're brought into the community, and it lasts after we'll stop. Galactic is a community that will be with you on your journey after space flight for what you want to do. So it is just an experience that we are marketing, and I wish, again, this is the reason. This is a slight tangent, I know, but this is the reason why I'm so excited to send so many more people up to space. I am an engineer first, so I think my communication skills aren't probably not the greatest. So when we send up a professional communicator, a poet, an artist, they'll come back down to earth and be able to describe the experience, the emotions in such a better way than I can. Because I can only say the word incredible, because that is like really what for me encompasses my experience.
I think by training, I am also an engineer first, but we are communicating just fine, Sirisha, so I wouldn't worry about that at all. But let me ask you this. In your role as the government relations person now, as Vice President for Government Relations for Virgin Galactic, tell us a little bit about some of the key policy areas you believe are especially important in this industry, and how and are currently shaping up potentially this tourism industry in space.
Yeah, absolutely. This has been a very interesting experience for me. I joined, as an engineer. Made the jump into the policy world, um, especially when the companies were not flying as often. If you know, they were launching very few. The cadence was very small those days, and now, fast forward today, we have launches so often we don't all tune in, which I think is incredible. You're like, oh, SpaceX launched yesterday, per usual. But to get to that point, it really was a partnership with government. Government does regulate the industry through FAA, but it's an entirely different way. It's an entirely different technology that has not been regulated before. And to do that, we had to look at what fits. It's not a one size fits all. It's not what you do with the airlines you're able to do with space flight. So it was really starting from scratch, looking at how do you create an environment that allows for safety, but also allows for growth and innovation. And we did that in partnership with the government. So it's those kinds of policies where you're looking at really creating new policies, because this is an entirely different industry that doesn't stunt innovation, but allows for growth, allows for competitiveness, but also creates a very safe environment for all of those involved. So that includes work with the FAA. It includes work with our customers at NASA, and the government agencies, DoD, and of course Congress that passes all of the legislation.
Great. So I've been having so much fun talking to you, Sirisha, so I've lost track of time, but I do want to put in a couple more questions if we may. I just actually have no idea how long we have gone so far. But one of the questions that Jacob is asking, for example, is there anything that you can tell someone in their 20s that you wish you knew when you were in college?
Oh my goodness. I feel like there's so much. Let's see. In the 20s. So I would say a couple of things. The biggest one is a lesson I learned multiple times is you're going to create your own path that works. You might see how someone else has achieved what you want to do, and it's fine to model after them, but if things don't go as planned, it's okay. Not everything works for you that the way they will work for anybody else. So it's fine to look after people, see how they achieved their dreams, but in the end, you really need to follow your gut and do what's right for you. The second would be take opportunities that may surprise you. So if you're focused from getting from point A to point B, and you've got an opportunity that doesn't really fit on that path, my advice would be don't count it out. Space policy wasn't in my original plan. I decided to take the jump to space policy because I saw it as a step to getting closer to commercial space. And I had no idea what I was doing at space policy at all. I was an engineer that went straight to the policy world, and I loved it. I didn't know I was going to like it, but I loved it. So take opportunities that you may not have planned. It may surprise you. You may love it. And if you don't, it's a very valuable lesson to know what you don't like as well. So I would say those are my two main points. Don't be afraid of opportunities, and don't be discouraged if you do not take a linear path to where you want to go.
Those are both excellent pieces of advice there. But let me ask you a final question, right? So this is exhilarating. This is like a dream come true for you, where you have done this. You have really had fun with this experience, and in some ways, it's most satisfying experience. So what's up for Sirisha next? What is it going to be that is going to give you this kind of exhilaration?
My goodness, I know. I thought I was dreaming big by setting my goals to space, and I'm very surprised and happy that I was able to realize that dream so early in my career. I mentioned how I did not go to space in the traditional way, or the way that I had originally thought I was going to space, and it was because of my eyesight. I did not qualify for a NASA astronaut. So I'm very excited that I'm in a position and at a company that is opening space up for all, and I can take part of that in opening that portal for space up for so many more people. I really do believe that the more and more people that go up to space and see the Earth in all of its beautiful glory, see the country with no borders, and see the thin blue line of the atmosphere, I think they're going to come back energized, really energized to impact their lives, impact the lives of other people, be kind to other people. And I think that's very, very important. And I am very energized and excited to be in a position to be able to help more and more people go up and see that view.
Well, Sirisha, thank you again very much for joining us. It's been wonderful talking to you. And I hope that we will continue this conversation, hopefully in person, so that our students can actually meet you in person and continue being inspired by you when you're on campus.
Yeah, absolutely. I am just down the street. Well, not really. I'm down a little bit farther in the district, but I would always come up to George Washington to see students and, of course, see you in person.
Thank you again. I would also like to thank all of you who joined us today and invite you to the next episode of George Talks Business. Our next guest on the show will be Andrew Stanley, Chief Information Security Officer for Mars Incorporated. We look forward to the conversation and hope you will join us then.